Please, Lily, just listen to me. My mother's voice cracked as she grabbed my wrist, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. I yanked my arm away, the journal trembling in my other hand. How long have you known? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The guilt written across her face. The way my father stood frozen in the doorway of their pristine Connecticut home. The complete silence from my older brother Michael, it told me everything. 10 years. They'd known for 10 years. My name is Lily Thompson, and 30 minutes ago, I thought I had the perfect life. At 28, I just made junior partner at one of Boston's top law firms. I had a beautiful apartment in Back Bay, a closet full of designer suits I'd worked my ass off to afford, and a best friend since childhood who'd always had my back. That best friend's name was Ethan Crawford. The golden boy of our hometown. The guy who taught me to ride a bike, who'd helped me study for the bar exam, who'd been the best man at my brother's wedding last month. The guy who, according to my sister's journal, had raped her 10 years ago when she was only 16. And my family had known, had covered it up, had invited him to family dinners and smiled at his jokes while my sister Emily suffered in silence. Where is she? I demanded, my voice eerily calm despite the rage burning through my veins. Where the hell is Emily? Lily, sweetheart, you need to understand, my father started. Don't, I held up my hand, cutting him off. Don't you dare try to explain this away. Just tell me where my sister is. The silence that followed was deafening. Then my mother whispered, Fairview Psychiatric Hospital. She's been there for 3 years. The journal slipped from my fingers, hitting the hardwood floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire house. 3 years. Emily had been institutionalized for 3 years, and I'd been told she was traveling abroad to find herself. I'd sent postcards to a fake address. I'd left voicemails that no one ever returned. I'd believed every single lie they'd fed me because why wouldn't I? These were the people who were supposed to love me, protect me, tell me the truth. Instead, they'd protected him. Ethan. My best friend. The monster who destroyed my sister's life while I laughed at his stupid jokes and confided in him about my dreams and fears. I'd found the journal by accident. Cleaning out the attic for my parents while they were supposedly at their anniversary dinner, I discovered a box labeled Emily's Things. Do not open. Of course I'd opened it. And there, beneath old yearbooks and dried flowers, was a leather-bound journal with entries that made my blood run cold. He came into my room again tonight. Mom heard me crying after. She told me to keep my voice down because Lily was sleeping. She said if I told anyone, it would destroy our family. That Lily would never forgive me for ruining her friendship with Ethan. So I stayed quiet. I always stay quiet. Entry after entry. Months of abuse. Months of my 16-year-old sister being violated by a 20-year-old man I considered my best friend. Months of my parents knowing and doing nothing worse than nothing. Actively covering it up. And the worst part? The detail that made me want to burn this entire house down? There were entries about me. About how Emily would hear me and Ethan laughing downstairs while she hid in her room, terrified he'd come back. About how she'd tried to tell me once, and I'd brushed her off because I was late for a date. I hadn't remembered that conversation until I read those words. But now it came flooding back. Emily, 17, her voice shaking. Lily, I need to talk to you about Ethan. He's not who you think. And I'd cut her off. I'm literally running out the door. Can this wait? Ethan's a good guy, whatever drama you think is happening. She'd never tried again. I want to see her, I said, my voice cutting through my mother's attempts at explanation. Right now. Take me to Emily. Visiting hours are over. I don't give a damn about visiting hours. The words exploded out of me, months, no, years of being the perfect daughter. The composed lawyer, the peacekeeper, all shattering at once. You people hid my sister in a psychiatric hospital for 3 years while you let her rapist walk free. While you invited him to Thanksgiving. While I made him the godfather to my future children. That last part made my stomach turn. 6 months ago, drunk on wine after my promotion celebration, I told Ethan that when I eventually had kids, I wanted him to be their godfather. He'd hugged me, told me he was honored, and I'd felt so grateful to have such a wonderful friend in my life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Speak of the devil, a text from Ethan. Hey, Lil. Still on for drinks tomorrow? Got some news to share. I stared at the message, at the casual way he used my nickname, at the smiley face like he didn't have a care in the world. Like he hadn't destroyed a teenage girl and then watched her family send her away to protect his reputation. Something shifted inside me in that moment. Something cold and sharp and absolutely certain. Michael. I turned to my brother, who'd been standing silently in the corner like the coward he was. You knew too, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. All of you. I looked at each of them, memorizing the guilt on their faces. You all chose him over her. You chose protecting a rapist over protecting your own daughter, your own sister. It was complicated, my mother tried. It really wasn't. I picked up the journal, holding it against my chest like a shield. But it's about to get very simple. I'm going to see Emily. I'm going to tell her that I believe her, that I'm sorry, and that I'm going to make this right. Lily, please think about what you're doing, my father said, his louder voice coming out the same voice he'd probably used to convince Emily to stay quiet. Ethan comes from a very powerful family. The Crawfords could destroy your career, and you have no proof, just the writings of a mentally unstable. Finish that sentence, I said softly, dangerously. I dare you. He closed his mouth. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Dad, I am thinking about what I'm doing. Probably more clearly than I've thought about anything in my entire life. See, I spent 10 years building a career in law. 10 years learning exactly how to destroy people who think they're untouchable. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because what comes next will show you exactly what happens when a lawyer discovers she's been defending monsters while her own sister suffered in silence. I left them standing in that house, in that suffocating silence, and drove straight to Fairview Psychiatric Hospital, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The journal sat on the passenger seat beside me, and with every mile, every traffic light, every breath, one thought repeated in my mind like a prayer. Ethan Crawford had no idea who he'd really hurt. Because the shy, quiet Emily might have been easy to silence. But Lily? The sister who'd spent a decade learning how to fight in courtrooms, who'd built a network of connections across New England's legal system, who'd never lost a case she truly committed to winning. I was about to become his worst nightmare. And unlike my sister, I had the power, the resources, and the absolute fury needed to make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of monster hid behind that charming smile. Fairview Psychiatric Hospital looked nothing like the sterile institutions you see in movies. It was actually beautiful, a renovated Victorian mansion surrounded by manicured gardens. The kind of place wealthy families sent their troubled relatives when they wanted them hidden, but comfortable. The kind of place that cost $15,000 a month. I'd looked it up during the 40-minute drive. My parents had been paying that amount for 3 years. 36 months of silence purchased at $540,000. Money that could have paid for therapy, for justice, for anything except what they'd actually used it for bearing the truth. The night nurse initially refused to let me in. I'm sorry, Miss Thompson, but it's nearly midnight and I'm an attorney. I pulled out my bar card in my best courtroom voice. And I'm also her sister, her only sister. The one who was deliberately kept unaware of her location by our parents. So you can either let me see Emily right now, or I can have a court order on your desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow along with a lawsuit for patient rights violations. I wouldn't actually do that, it wasn't the nurse's fault. But she didn't know that. 5 minutes later, I was being led down a quiet hallway to room 237. Nothing could have prepared me for seeing Emily, the vibrant, artistic girl I remembered. The one who'd painted murals on her bedroom walls and wore flowers in her hair was gone. In her place sat a hollow-eyed woman who looked a decade older than her 26 years. Her hair, once long and wild, was cut short and lifeless. She sat by the window in pajamas, staring out at the darkness. Emily? My voice came out as a whisper. She turned slowly, and for a moment there was no recognition. Then her eyes focused, widened, and filled with something I couldn't quite name. Fear? Hope? Disbelief? Lily? Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't used it much lately. You're not supposed to be here. I know. I crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair, taking her cold hands in mine. I know I'm not. But I found your journal, Em. I found it and I read it and I am so sorry. She went rigid. Mom said she destroyed it. She lied. I pulled it from my bag. She's been lying about a lot of things. They told me you were traveling. That you were finding yourself in Europe or Asia or God. I was so stupid. I believed them. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You weren't stupid. You were exactly what they needed you to be. Busy. Focused on your career. Far enough away in Boston that you wouldn't notice. Tell me everything, I said. Please, I need to hear it from you. And she did. For the next 2 hours, Emily told me everything the journal hadn't covered. How it started when she was 15, Ethan making comments about her body that made her uncomfortable. How it escalated when she turned 16. How he'd cornered her at my college graduation party, drunk and aggressive, and how that was the first time. I tried to scream, she whispered, her hand shaking in mine. But the music was so loud and everyone was celebrating, and he put his hand over my mouth and told me this was what I'd been asking for. Wearing those shorts, smiling at him, being such a tease. My vision blurred with rage. I'd been at that party, downstairs, laughing with friends, completely oblivious while my sister was being raped 1 floor above me. When did you tell Mom? I managed to ask. That same night. I was bleeding and crying, and she found me in the bathroom. I thought, Emily's voice broke. I thought she'd call the police. Get help. But Dad came in, and they both just looked at me like I'd broken something valuable. Like I was the problem that needed solving. What did they say? What did they say? Dad asked if I'd been drinking, if I was sure I hadn't misunderstood Ethan's intentions. Mom asked if anyone had seen us. When I said I didn't think so, they told me to take a shower, get some sleep, and we'd talk about it in the morning. But you didn't talk about it. No, the next morning Dad called me into his office. Ethan was there. And Ethan's father. Emily's whole body trembled now. Mr. Crawford is a partner at Dad's firm. They told me that if I made accusations, it would destroy both our families, that no one would believe me anyway because I'd been flirting with Ethan for years, which was a lie. They said I'd ruin your friendship with Ethan, ruin Dad's career, ruin everything. Jesus Christ, Ethan apologized. She laughed bitterly. He sat there and said he was sorry for getting carried away, and that it wouldn't happen again. His dad assured my dad that Ethan would keep his distance. And I was stupid enough to believe them. It happened again. 5 more times over the next year. Always when everyone was distracted. Always when he knew he could get away with it. The last time I fought back. Scratched his face, screamed loud enough that Michael heard. I closed my eyes. Michael knew. Michael walked in on it. Saw Ethan on top of me, saw me crying, saw everything, and you know what he did? He apologized for interrupting and closed the door. The sound that came out of me was barely human. My own brother, my own flesh and blood had seen our sister being raped and had walked away. After that, I tried to kill myself. Emily continued, her voice flat now, emotionless. Pills from Mom's medicine cabinet. They found me in time, pumped my stomach, and told everyone I'd had a breakdown from stress. Within a week, I was here, diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety. Occasionally delusional, they said. Making up stories for attention. The journal entries. I wrote them before they took my phone and computer. Before they started medicating me so heavily I could barely think. I hid the journal in a box of old school stuff, thinking maybe someday someone would find it. I never thought it would be you. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something fierce flicker in her eyes, a glimpse of the sister I remembered. What are you going to do, Lily? Because if you're thinking about going to the police, you should know that Dad's already prepared for that. He's got statements from our family doctor saying I've been mentally unstable since puberty. Character witnesses who'll say I had a crush on Ethan and got upset when he didn't reciprocate. They've spent 10 years building a wall around this secret. I'm not going to the police, I said quietly. Disappointment flooded her face. Oh, I understand. Your career. I'm not going to the police because they're not equipped to give Ethan what he deserves. I stood up, still holding her hands. Do you know what I do for a living? Really do? You're a corporate lawyer, right? Right? I'm a litigation specialist who destroys people's lives for a living. I take companies that think they're untouchable and I dismantle them piece by piece in front of juries. I find every skeleton, every buried secret, every weakness, and I exploit it until there's nothing left. For the first time since I'd entered the room, Emily smiled. You're going to destroy him. I'm going to destroy all of them. Ethan, his father, our parents, Michael, everyone who knew and did nothing. Everyone who chose protecting a rapist over protecting you. I pulled out my phone. But I need your permission. And I need you to trust me. What do you need? I need you to stay here for a few more weeks. Keep taking the medication. Keep acting like the broken girl they want you to be. Can you do that? She nodded slowly. What are you planning? I'm planning to be exactly who they raised me to be. The perfect daughter. The loyal friend. The successful lawyer who doesn't ask difficult questions. I squeezed her hands. Right up until the moment I bury them all. I left the hospital at 3 a.m. with Emily's full support, and a recording of our conversation on my phone admissible in court since she'd given explicit consent. The journal was in my bag, properly photographed and documented. And in my head was a plan that was starting to take shape. But first, I had drinks with Ethan tomorrow. The same Ethan who texted me earlier with news to share. I pulled out my phone and typed back. Can't wait. Been too long since we caught up. The smiley face felt like swallowing poison, but that was fine. I'd been swallowing poison my whole life without knowing it. At least now I knew what I was doing and why. My phone rang. Mom calling. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message. Lily, sweetheart, please. You're upset. We understand. But think about what you're doing. Ethan's father called. He knows you found the journal. They're willing to offer Emily a settlement if you drop this and return the journal. A generous settlement. Enough to pay for her care for the rest of her life. Please just come home and let's talk about this like adults. A settlement. Blood money to make me complicit in their conspiracy. I deleted the message and drove home to my apartment in Boston, my mind racing through scenarios, strategies, legal precedents. The Crawford family was powerful old money, political connections, a law firm with tentacles throughout New England. Taking them on directly would be suicide. But I hadn't survived law school and built my career by being direct. I'd survived by being smarter than everyone else in the room, by seeing angles nobody else saw, by being patient when patience mattered. And I'd just realized something that made my blood sing with possibility. In 2 months, the Crawford family law firm was merging with Wellington and Associates, the very firm where I'd just made junior partner. Which meant Ethan's father, Robert Crawford, was about to become my colleague. Which meant I'd have access to files, communications, internal emails. Which meant the enemy was about to invite me inside their walls. I smiled in the darkness of my apartment, pulled out my laptop, and began to research. By sunrise, I had a list of every case the Crawford firm had handled in the past 15 years, every client they'd represented, every settlement they'd buried. And buried in those files was exactly what I needed. A pattern. Because men like Ethan didn't stop. Men protected by power and money never stopped. Which meant somewhere in those files were other victims. Other families paid off. Other girls silenced. I just had to find them. And when I did, Ethan Crawford wouldn't just lose his freedom. He'd lose everything. The same way Emily had. The same way I had, even if I hadn't known it yet. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Actually, change of plans. Come to the office tomorrow, instead of the bar. Dad wants to talk to you about something. Nothing serious, just some merger stuff since you're at Wellington now. Bring your appetite, we're ordering luncheon. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I typed back. Sounds great. See you at noon. Then I opened a new document on my laptop and titled it, Crawford v. Justice Complete Destruction Protocol. Time to go to work. The Crawford and Associates offices occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Boston. Expensive art on the walls, marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The kind of place designed to intimidate. I walked in wearing my best Armani suit and a smile that felt like broken glass in my mouth. Lily! Ethan met me in the lobby, pulling me into a hug that made my skin crawl. I forced myself not to flinch, to laugh, to hug him back like I had 1,000 times before. You look amazing. Partnership agrees with you. Thanks. I stepped back, maintaining the mask. So what's this big news you mentioned? Let's talk in Dad's office. He's excited to see you. Robert Crawford's corner office was exactly what you'd expect: leather chairs, mahogany desk, walls covered in degrees from Harvard and Yale, photos with senators and judges. He stood when we entered, that practiced politician smile spreading across his face. Lily Thompson. Look at you, all grown up and making partner. Your father must be so proud. My father. The man who'd helped this monster cover up his son's crimes. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. It's good to see you again. Please call me Robert. We're about to be colleagues after all. He gestured to a chair. Have a seat. Lunch should be here soon. I sat, crossed my legs, pulled out my phone to silence it, and in that brief moment, activated the voice recording app hidden in my calendar. A trick I'd learned from a private investigator I'd worked with on a case last year. So, Robert leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. I understand you had an interesting evening yesterday. Visit to your parents' house? There it was. The real reason for this meeting. Just a family dinner, I said smoothly. Though it ended earlier than expected. Mom wasn't feeling well. Ethan and his father exchanged a glance. Robert's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Lily, we've known each other for a long time. Since you were what? 12? 13? You and Ethan, thick as thieves. He paused. So I'm going to be direct. Your mother called me last night. Very upset. Said you found some old journal of Emily's and got some unfortunate ideas. Ideas? I kept my voice curious, innocent. Your sister has been struggling with mental health issues for years. We all know that. And sometimes, people in that state create narratives that feel real to them, but aren't based in reality. Dad, Ethan started, but Robert held up a hand. Let me finish, son. He turned back to me. Emily made some very serious accusations 10 years ago. Accusations we investigated thoroughly at the time. Your father, as her parent and as an attorney, looked into every detail. So did I, and we determined that what Emily believed happened was actually a product of teenage confusion. Medication she was on at the time, and frankly, an unhealthy fixation on Ethan. I let the silence hang for a moment. That's quite a narrative. It's the truth. Robert's voice hardened slightly. And the journal you found? Written during a period when Emily was heavily medicated and experiencing delusional episodes. Your parents kept it because they hoped someday she'd be healthy enough to see how distorted her thinking had become. It was a good story. They'd had 10 years to perfect it. And if I'd been anyone else, if I hadn't spent my entire career learning to spot lies, I might have even believed the conviction in his voice. I see, I said carefully. The thing is, Ethan leaned forward, his voice gentle, concerned. We're worried about you. Lil, you've been working so hard, the stress of making partner, and now this thing with Emily. It would be totally understandable if you got confused or overwhelmed. I appreciate your concern. We'd like to make things easier for you, Robert said. The merger between our firms is going to be complex. Lot of long hours, lot of pressure. If you needed to take some time off, maybe a sabbatical to process everything with your family, we'd understand completely. With full pay, of course. There it was. The bribe wrapped in concern. That's very generous, I said. But I'm not confused or overwhelmed. I'm actually more clear-headed than I've been in years. Another glance between them. Robert's smile disappeared entirely. Lily, let me be very clear. If you pursue this, if you make wild accusations based on the fantasies of a mentally ill woman, you won't just damage Ethan's reputation. You'll destroy your own career. No firm will touch you. Your father will be disbarred for ethics violations. Your entire family will be ruined. And Emily? I asked quietly. What happens to her in this scenario? Emily gets the best care money can buy. Forever. We'll triple the trust fund we've already established for her. But only if this journal disappears and we all move forward. I pretended to consider it. Let them see doubt, hesitation. Let them think their threats and bribes were working. Can I think about it? I finally asked, my voice smaller, uncertain. Relief flooded both their faces. Of course, Robert said warmly, the smile returning. Take all the time you need. Just remember, we're family, Lily. We protect each other. The lunch that followed was surreal. Ethan told jokes. Robert talked about the merger, about my promising future, about a partnership track that could make me one of the youngest senior partners in the firm's history. They painted a beautiful picture of success and money and power. All I had to do was let my sister's rapist walk free. I left their office at 2 p.m. with promises to think things through carefully and went directly to a coffee shop 3 blocks away where I'd arranged to meet someone. His name was Marcus Chen, and he was the best private investigator in New England. I'd worked with him on a corporate espionage case 2 years ago. He was expensive, discreet, and had absolutely no love for powerful men who thought they were above the law. You look like you need something stronger than coffee, he said when I sat down. I need everything you can find on Ethan Crawford. Every woman he's dated, every college party he attended, every sealed record, every NDA his family's lawyers ever filed. I slid an envelope across the table. That's a $50,000 retainer. There's more where that came from. Marcus didn't open the envelope. This is personal. Very. Good. I hate these entitled pricks. He pocketed the envelope. What's the timeline? Fast. The firm merger completes in 6 weeks. I need everything before then. I'll have preliminary findings in 1 week. He paused. Lily, if these guys are as connected as you say, they'll notice someone digging. They'll come after you. Let them. I want them feeling confident right up until the moment I destroy them. 3 days later, Marcus sent me an encrypted email with a single line. Found something. Meet me at the usual place. Tonight. The usual place was a parking garage near the waterfront. Marcus was waiting in his car, and when I got in, he handed me a folder. 4 women, he said. 4 women in the past 12 years who received settlements from the Crawford family. All had NDAs. All were paid between $100,000 and $250,000. All were in their late teens or early 20s when the incidents occurred. My hands shook as I opened the folder. Photos, names, settlement agreements with entire sections redacted. Can you get them to talk? I asked. 2 of them moved out of state and won't return my calls. One is scared her NDA has a clause about financial penalties if she breaks silence. But the 4th... Marcus smiled grimly. Her name is Jessica Martinez. She's a paralegal now, works at a firm in Providence. And she's angry, Lily. Really angry. She signed that NDA when she was 19 because her family needed the money, but she's 28 now, married, has a daughter. And she told me she spent 9 years watching Ethan Crawford get promoted and praised while she has nightmares. Will she meet with me? She already said yes. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Her office after everyone leaves. That night, I received a text from my mother. Please tell me you're being smart about this. Your father and I only want what's best for you. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it without responding. The next evening, Jessica Martinez met me in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and desperation. She was petite, professional, with sad eyes that looked far older than 28. I can't break my NDA, she said immediately. I have a daughter. I can't risk losing everything. I'm not asking you to break it publicly, I assured her. Not yet. I just need to understand what happened. And when the time comes, I need to know if you'd be willing to testify if the NDA was legally nullified. She studied me for a long moment. You're going after him. Really going after him? Yes. Why now? What changed? He raped my sister 10 years ago. I just found out. Jessica's face crumpled. God, I'm so sorry. She's alive, institutionalized, diagnosed, as delusional because no one believed her. They do that. Jessica's voice turned bitter. make you seem crazy so no one questions their version. When I tried to report what Ethan did, his father told the police I'd been drinking, that I pursued Ethan and got upset when he rejected me. They had witnesses as friends who all swore I'd been all over him at the party. What actually happened? She told me. A college party during Ethan's senior year at Harvard. Jessica, a freshman from a working-class family, invited by a friend. Ethan, drunk and aggressive, cornering her in a bedroom. The assault. Her screaming bringing people running, and Ethan's friends immediately circling wagons, claiming she was making it up for attention. The Crawford family lawyer showed up at my dorm the next day, she continued. Offered me $150,000 to sign papers saying it was all a misunderstanding. My mom was dying of cancer. We were drowning in medical bills. I took the money because I had to, not because I wanted to. Did Ethan ever apologize? She laughed harshly. He sent me a gift basket when my mom died. The card said, "Sorry for your loss. Hope you're doing well." Like we were old friends. Like he hadn't. Her voice broke. I reached across the table and took her hand. Jessica, I'm going to destroy him, but I need help. I need to know if there are others. And I need to know if you'll stand with me when the time comes. If you can break the NDA without me losing everything. She met my eyes. I'll stand with you. I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure he can't do this to anyone else. When I left Providence that night, I had something more valuable than evidence. I had an ally, and in my experience, one brave person willing to speak truth was worth 1,000 legal documents. But I also had something else, a voicemail from Ethan that made my blood run cold. Hey, Lil. Just checking in. Dad mentioned you seemed a little off at lunch yesterday. Everything okay? You know you can talk to me about anything, right? We're family. Always have been. Always will be. Call me back when you get this. Love you. The casual way he said, "Love you," made me want to scream. But instead, I smiled. Because Ethan Crawford thought he was checking on a confused friend. He had no idea he was actually checking on the woman who was about to become his executioner. I texted back, "All good. Just been busy with work stuff. Let's grab coffee next week." His response came immediately. Perfect. Knew you'd come around. You're too smart to believe crazy conspiracy theories. I stared at that message. At his confidence, his absolute certainty that I'd fall in line like everyone else in his life. And I realized something that made everything crystallize into perfect clarity. Ethan didn't just think he'd get away with what he did to Emily and Jessica and those other women. He thought he already had. The firm merger was scheduled for a Friday. On the Thursday before, I received an email that made everything fall into place. Marcus had found 2 more victims willing to talk. Both had signed NDAs. Both were ready to break them if I could provide legal protection. And buried in the files he'd obtained through methods I specifically told him I didn't want to know about was something explosive. Robert Crawford himself had assaulted a paralegal at his firm 15 years ago. The settlement was buried under shell companies and attorney-client privilege. But Marcus had found her, and she was ready to talk. The web was bigger than I'd imagined. Father and son, both predators, both protected by money and power, and a legal system designed to shield men like them. I worked for 72 hours straight, barely sleeping, building my case like I was preparing for the trial of my life. Because in a way I was. On merger day, the entire staff of both firms gathered in the main conference room. Champagne, speeches about new beginnings, partners shaking hands and pretending to be excited about synergy. I stood in the back, watching Ethan laugh with colleagues, watching Robert accept congratulations, watching my own father who'd flown in from Connecticut smile and network like he hadn't spent a decade covering up his daughter's rape. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Package delivered. Check your email. I excused myself to the bathroom and opened the email on my phone. Marcus had sent every piece of evidence to 3 places simultaneously. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office, the Boston Globe investigative team, and the State Bar Association's Ethics Committee. 7 victims total. Documented patterns of assault. Settlement agreements. And my recorded conversation with Robert Crawford where he'd essentially admitted to covering up Ethan's crimes, while threatening to destroy my career if I spoke out. The fire was lit. Now I just had to watch it burn. I returned to the conference room just as Robert Crawford stepped up to give a speech about integrity and excellence and the proud legacy both firms would build together. My phone rang. Then his phone. Then multiple phones around the room. Robert frowned, checking his messages. I watched the color drain from his face. Ethan's phone rang next. Then my father's. The Attorney General's office had issued a statement. They were opening an investigation into multiple allegations of sexual assault and conspiracy to obstruct justice involving senior partners at Crawford and Associates. The Globe had just published their story online. The headline, Dynasty of Predators, How One of Boston's Most Prestigious Law Firms Covered Up Decades of Sexual Assault. Every phone in that room was buzzing now. Lawyers frantically reading the article, gasping, looking at Robert and Ethan with dawning horror. Robert's eyes found mine across the room. For one crystalline moment, we stared at each other. I watched understanding flood his face, the realization that the confused little girl he'd tried to bribe and threaten had just destroyed him. I smiled, not a friendly smile. A smile that said, "You underestimated me, and now you're going to pay for it." "This is a lie." Robert's voice boomed across the room. A malicious, coordinated attack by 7 women who are willing to testify under oath. I stepped forward, my voice calm and clear. By women who have medical records, text messages, witnesses. By your own son's victims who you paid to stay silent. The room went deadly quiet. Ethan stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. "Lily, what are you doing?" What I should have done 10 years ago when my sister tried to tell me the truth. I pulled out my phone and held it up, the recording app visible. "What I've been doing for the past 3 weeks while you thought I was coming around. I've been documenting everything. Every threat you made, every bribe you offered, every lie you told. You recorded us?" Robert's face turned purple with rage. "That's illegal. Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state. Actually, it's not when you're documenting the commission of a crime. Obstruction of justice, witness tampering, conspiracy, all felonies. And I'm an attorney who knows exactly how to make recordings admissible in court." I looked around the room. So yes, I recorded Robert Crawford threatening to destroy my career if I reported his son's crimes. I recorded Ethan attempting to gaslight me about my sister's assault. And I have sworn statements from 7 women who Ethan Crawford raped or sexually assaulted, all of whom his father paid to stay silent. My father pushed through the crowd. "Lily, stop this right now. You don't know what you're doing, don't I?" I turned to face him, years of rage finally finding its target. "I'm doing exactly what you taught me, Dad. I'm being a lawyer. A good one. The kind who actually seeks justice instead of burying it for clients who can afford your silence. Your sister is mentally ill. My sister is a rape victim you had institutionalized to protect your career." My voice cracked and I didn't try to hide it. "You chose him over her. You chose money and reputation over your own daughter's safety. And you know what the worst part is? I would have done the same thing. 6 months ago, if you told me this story about someone else, I would have helped you cover it up because that's what we do. We protect the powerful and sacrifice the vulnerable." The managing partner of Wellington and Associates, my firm, stepped forward. "Ms. Thompson, these are serious allegations." "They are. Which is why I've already submitted my resignation, effective immediately." I pulled an envelope from my bag. I can't be part of a firm that merges with criminals. And I can't be part of a profession that values billable hours over human dignity. I looked at Ethan one last time. He was shaking, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. The golden boy who'd never faced consequences for anything in his entire life was finally understanding what accountability looked like. "I loved you like a brother," I said quietly. "I would have trusted you with my life. And you used that trust to destroy my sister while I stood by and laughed at your jokes. So this isn't just for Emily or Jessica or those other women. This is for the person I used to be. The one who was so focused on success that she couldn't see the monster standing right next to her." "Lily, please." Ethan's voice was desperate now. "We can fix this. We can talk." "No." The word came out like a gunshot. We can't. Because in about 20 minutes, the police are going to arrive with warrants for your arrest and your father's. And while you're being processed, the state bar is going to begin disbarment proceedings. And while that's happening, Emily is going to walk out of Fairview Psychiatric Hospital with a clean bill of health and a lawsuit against everyone who wrongfully imprisoned her. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Ethan? That coffee date next week? I'm going to have to cancel. I'll be busy helping the prosecution build their case against you. If this story has shown you anything about the power of truth over silence, make sure you're subscribed to this channel because justice isn't just about the courtroom. It's about survivors finding their voice and refusing to let powerful people silence them ever again. The room erupted in chaos as I walked out. Lawyers shouting, phones ringing, Robert Crawford screaming about lawsuits and defamation. But I didn't look back. In the elevator down, my hands finally started shaking. The adrenaline that had carried me through the past 3 weeks was draining away, leaving exhaustion and relief in its wake. My phone rang. Could you do it? She asked, her voice stronger than I'd heard in years. I did it. They're finished, Em. All of them. Robert, Ethan, Dad, their careers are over. And the criminal charges are just beginning. She was quiet for a moment. Then, thank you. God, Lily, thank you. I'm so sorry it took me so long. You're here now. That's what matters. I wiped tears from my face as the elevator reached the lobby. Through the glass doors, I could see news vans already pulling up, reporters scrambling. The story was breaking in real time. I'm coming to get you, I said. Right now. We're going home. Home? My apartment. Our apartment. You're not staying in that hospital another night. Outside, I walked past the gathering reporters, ignoring their shouted questions. My phone was exploding with calls from my mother, from former colleagues, from journalists. I silenced it all. 3 blocks away, I finally stopped and leaned against a building, letting myself breathe for the first time in weeks. A voice behind me. That was quite a performance. I turned. Marcus Chen, leaning against his car, smoking a cigarette even though he'd supposedly quit. Just doing my job, I said. Your job was corporate litigation. This? He gestured back toward the building. This was personal. Yeah, it was. The Crawford lawyers are already calling it a witch hunt. Claiming you fabricated evidence out of revenge. Let them claim whatever they want. I have 7 women willing to testify. I have recordings. I have settlement documents. I have a paper trail that leads directly to criminal conspiracy. I smiled tiredly. They're not fighting me anymore, Marcus. They're fighting the truth. And the truth doesn't care about their money or their connections. He nodded slowly. What happens now? Now? I go get my sister. I help her heal. I help those other women fight. And I figure out who I want to be now that I'm not trying to impress people who never deserved my respect in the first place. You gave up a lot today. Partnership, salary, reputation in certain circles. I gave up nothing that mattered. I pushed off the building. One chose my sister over my career. My conscience over my comfort. That's not a sacrifice, Marcus. That's finally getting my priorities straight. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. This is Jessica Martinez. I saw the news. Thank you for being brave enough to start this. We're with you. All of us. I sat in my car and cried then. Not from sadness or fear, but from relief. From the knowledge that I'd finally done something that mattered more than billable hours and partnership tracks. Emily was waiting when I arrived at Fairview. She'd already been cleared for discharge, the hospital's lawyers were, terrified of being implicated in wrongful imprisonment. She looked small standing outside with a single bag, but her spine was straight and her eyes were clear. Ready? I asked. She took my hand. Ready. We drove back to Boston in silence, but it was a comfortable silence. The kind that exists between people who've survived something terrible and come out the other side. As the city skyline came into view, Emily finally spoke. What do you think happens to them? Ethan and his father? Prison, if there's any justice in the world. And even if they manage to avoid that, their reputations are destroyed. Robert will be disbarred. Ethan will never practice law. They'll spend the rest of their lives being known as predators instead of pillars of the community. Good. Yeah, good. That night, I received an email from the Attorney General's office requesting my cooperation as a witness. Attached was a preliminary list of charges being filed: 7 counts of sexual assault, conspiracy to obstruct justice, witness tampering, fraud. Ethan Crawford was arrested at 11 p.m. in his Beacon Hill apartment. His father was arrested an hour later at their family estate. The news coverage was relentless. Every network, every paper, every podcast. The story had everything: wealthy predators, institutional cover-up, brave survivors, and a dramatic public exposure. But the moment that mattered most came 3 days later when Emily and I sat in a conference room with the other 6 women who'd been assaulted. Women from different backgrounds, different ages, different parts of the country, all connected by the same trauma and the same courage. We're going to win this, I told them. Not just in court, we're going to win in every way that matters. We're going to make sure everyone knows what happened. We're going to make sure no one else has to suffer like you did. Jessica Martinez stood up. I spent 9 years afraid of breaking my NDA, afraid of losing everything. But you know what I realized? They already took everything that mattered when they made me stay silent. Now we're taking it back. The others nodded, voices joining hers. 7 women who'd been silenced, now refusing to be quiet ever again. And in that moment, I understood something profound. Revenge wasn't about destroying Ethan Crawford. It was about building something he could never touch: a community of survivors who refused to let shame or fear define them. 2 months later, Ethan Crawford pleaded guilty to avoid trial. 25 years in prison. His father, facing disbarment and criminal charges, resigned from the bar and entered a plea deal for 15 years. My father lost his license to practice law. My mother filed for divorce, and Emily started painting again. 1 year later, Lily Thompson stood in a small office in downtown Boston with a sign on the door that read, Survivor Advocacy Legal Services. Free consultations. It wasn't a corner office. There was no marble lobby, no expensive art, no view of the harbor. Just 3 rooms, secondhand furniture, and a coffee maker that worked half the time. It was perfect. Your 2 o'clock is here, Emily called from the reception desk. Her hair had grown back long, streaked with the purple she'd always wanted but their mother had forbidden. She wore paint-stained jeans and a smile that actually reached her eyes now. The client was a 19-year-old college student whose professor had assaulted her. The university was offering a settlement with an NDA attached. She was terrified, broke, and convinced no one would believe her. Lily knew that feeling intimately. Here's what's going to happen, Lily said after hearing her story. We're going to reject their settlement. We're going to file a Title X complaint, a police report, and a civil lawsuit. And we're going to make enough noise that every other girl he's hurt knows she's not alone. But I can't afford. This firm doesn't charge survivors. We're funded by donations and settlement percentages from institutions that try to cover up abuse. The university has deep pockets. They'll pay for their silence, and we'll use that money to help the next victim. The girl started crying. Why are you doing this? Lily glanced at Emily, who was listening from the doorway. Because someone should have done it for my sister. And because the system only protects the powerful when the rest of us stay quiet. After the client left, Jessica Martinez arrived for their weekly strategy meeting. She'd quit her paralegal job and was now in law school, determined to become the kind of attorney she'd needed 9 years ago. 3 other survivors from the Crawford case had joined them as volunteers and advocates. Ethan's appeal was denied, Jessica announced, dropping her bag on the conference table. 25 years, no parole possibility for at least 15. Emily exhaled slowly. Good. That's good. Robert's serving his sentence at a minimum security facility, Jessica continued. But his reputation is gone. The firm collapsed. Most of his former partners are under investigation themselves. Lily nodded, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph. Just a quiet sense that justice, however imperfect, had been served. Her phone buzzed. A text from her brother Michael. Mom's in the hospital. Heart attack. She's asking for you. She stared at the message for a long moment. Michael had lost his job when the scandal broke. The company didn't want the liability of employing someone who'd witnessed a rape and done nothing. He'd tried to apologize to Emily, tried to explain that he'd been scared, confused, just a kid himself. Emily had listened politely, then told him she'd forgive him when he testified against their father in court. He'd refused. They hadn't spoken since. "You should go," Emily said quietly, reading Lily's expression. "Should I? She's still our mother." Even if she failed at it, the hospital was sterile and cold. Their mother looked small in the bed, older than her 60 years, connected to machines that beeped steadily. Michael sat in the corner, looking uncomfortable. "Lily." Her mother's voice was weak. "You came." "Emily thought I should." "How is she?" "Emily. She's thriving. She has an art show next month. Her therapist says she's made remarkable progress." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I dream about her sometimes. About that night she came to me, bleeding and crying. I dream about choosing differently." Lily pulled up a chair but didn't sit. "Why didn't you choose differently?" "I was afraid. Of scandal, of losing everything we'd built. Your father said it would ruin our family, ruin you. He convinced me that protecting Ethan was protecting us." She looked away. "I was weak. And I'm so sorry. Emily's the one you should apologize to. She won't see me." "Can you blame her?" Silence settled over the room. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "I saw the article about your new firm," her mother said finally. "You're helping other girls. Women. I'm helping women and girls who were failed by people like you. People who chose comfort over courage. You gave up so much. Partnership, money, your father's respect. I gave up nothing that mattered." Lily finally sat down, meeting her mother's eyes. "I spent my whole life trying to make you and Dad proud. Trying to be the perfect daughter who didn't cause problems or ask difficult questions. And you know what I realized? Your approval was never worth the price I was paying for it." "What was the price?" "My sister, my integrity, my ability to look at myself in the mirror and respect who I saw." Her mother was crying now, quiet tears sliding down her face. "Can you ever forgive me?" Lily considered the question honestly. "I don't know. Maybe someday. But forgiveness isn't something you're entitled to just because you're sorry. It's something you earn through changed behavior. And I haven't seen that yet." She stood to leave. Michael finally spoke. "I testified last week against Dad for the disbarment hearing." Lily stopped. "Why now?" "Because Emily was right. I was a coward. I chose the easy path, and it's eaten at me every day for 10 years. He looked up at her. "I can't undo what I did. But I can stop making the same choice. Send me the transcript. If Emily wants to see it, I'll give it to her. If she doesn't, I'll burn it. That's her decision, not mine." Driving back to the office, Lily thought about forgiveness and accountability and the complicated truth that people could be both victims of circumstance and architects of their own failures. Her mother had been raised in a generation that taught women to be quiet, to defer, to protect men's reputations at all costs. But she'd also been an adult with choices, and she'd chosen wrong. Understanding someone's reasons didn't mean excusing their actions. That evening, Emily's art show opened at a small gallery in Cambridge. The collection was called Resurrection, and every piece dealt with themes of survival, truth, and reclamation. The centerpiece was a massive canvas showing a woman underwater, not drowning but transforming, her body breaking apart into pieces that reformed as something stronger, fiercer, unbreakable. Lily stood in front of it with tears streaming down her face. "It's us," Emily said, coming to stand beside her. "Both of us. You underwater in your career, drowning in ambition and lies. Me underwater in that hospital, drowning in medication and silence. And both of us choosing to surface and breathe even when it hurt. It's beautiful, Em. You know what the best part is? Ethan will never see it. He'll spend the next 15 years in a cell while I'm out here creating art and healing and living the life he tried to take from me." Emily smiled. "That's the real victory. Not his imprisonment, my freedom. The show was packed. Survivors from their advocacy group, journalists who'd covered the case, former colleagues who'd stood by Lily when she walked away from her career. Even Marcus Chen showed up, still claiming he quit smoking while clearly having a pack in his jacket. Near the end of the night, a young woman approached Lily nervously. "Miss Thompson, I read about what you did. How you exposed the Crawford family. And I wanted to say thank you. Did they hurt you too?" "No, but my boss did. And I'd been too scared to report it because he's powerful and I'm nobody. But seeing what you did, seeing that it's possible to fight back." She took a deep breath. "I filed a complaint today, with HR and with the police." Lily took her hand. "That's incredibly brave. Do you have a lawyer?" "I can't afford. Come to my office Monday. We'll talk." No charge. After she left, Jessica appeared with champagne. "You're collecting strays. I'm collecting warriors," Lily corrected. "There's a difference." They toasted to Emily, to survival, to the long, difficult work of dismantling systems built to protect predators. And as Lily looked around the gallery at the community they'd built from the ashes of her old life, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything was perfect. Her family was fractured, her mother was sick, her career had imploded, and she was living on savings while building a nonprofit from scratch. But she was free, free from the weight of lies, from the pressure to be complicit in evil, from the hollow achievement of success built on silence. 3 months later, Lily received a letter. Prison stationery, Ethan's handwriting. She almost threw it away unread. But curiosity won. "Lily, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I know what I did to Emily was unforgivable. What I did to Jessica and the others. I've spent every day in here thinking about the lives I destroyed, including my own. You were my best friend, and I betrayed that in the worst possible way. I'm not asking you to write back. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Ethan." She read it twice, then filed it away. Maybe someday she'd show it to Emily, maybe not. That wasn't her decision to make. But she didn't respond. Because some apologies don't deserve acknowledgement. Some bridges need to stay burned. Some people need to sit with the full weight of their choices without the comfort of forgiveness. A year turned into 2. The advocacy firm grew, helping dozens of survivors fight back against abusers and institutions. Emily's art gained recognition. Galleries across the country wanted her Resurrection series. Jessica graduated law school and joined Lily's firm full-time. And one morning, Lily woke up and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd had a nightmare about the old life she'd lost. Because she hadn't lost anything. She'd traded fool's gold for something real. On the 3rd anniversary of the day she'd walked out of that merger meeting, Emily and Lily sat on the roof of their building, watching the sunset over Boston. "Do you regret it?" Emily asked. "Everything you gave up?" Lily thought about corner offices and 6-figure salaries and her father's approval. Then she thought about the 19-year-old girl from this morning who'd walked into their office terrified and walked out knowing she had someone fighting for her. "Not even for a second," she said. "I spent 28 years climbing a ladder that was leaning against the wrong building. Walking away wasn't a loss. It was the first honest thing I'd done in my entire life. Think Mom will ever understand that? Honestly? I don't care anymore. Her understanding isn't required for me to live with integrity." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned gold and purple. Somewhere across the city, Ethan Crawford was in a cell, counting down 15 more years before parole eligibility. Robert Crawford was in another cell, his legacy destroyed. Their father was disbarred, teaching paralegal classes at a community college, a bitter shell of the powerful attorney he'd once been. And here they were. 2 sisters who'd survived the worst that power and privilege could inflict, who'd chosen truth over comfort, who'd built something meaningful from the wreckage. "You know what I learned from all this?" Lily said finally. "Revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about refusing to let them destroy you. It's about taking the life they tried to steal and making it so beautiful, so meaningful, so full of purpose that their attempts to break you become irrelevant." Emily leaned her head on Lily's shoulder. "We won. Yeah. We did. If this story moved you, showed you that speaking truth to power is possible even when it costs everything, then make sure you're part of this community. Subscribe. Share with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the people who tried to silence you don't get to write your ending. You do. And your story isn't about what they took from you, it's about everything you built after surviving them. The sun dipped below the horizon, and in the gathering darkness, two sisters sat side by side, scarred but unbroken. Proof that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to stay buried.